the Nonprofit Podcast, powered by DonorBox.
You know, there's a strategic fundraising approach that helps you raise more money for your mission, and it also builds strong donor relationships. It promotes long-term sustainability, and it allows donors to leave a meaningful legacy with your organization. Yep, it's true. Today, we're talking about planned giving. Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast. I'm Cara, fundraising coach at DonorBox. We're here each week with practical actions you can use today to take your nonprofit to the next level tomorrow. And nonprofits are sometimes hesitant to start or build on a planned giving program. Maybe you feel that way too. It can seem downright complex, but we have an expert with us today to help shift that misperception. Tony Martignetti is a specialist in planned giving. In fact, he is a go-to expert for so many nonprofit professionals, and me too, when we want to learn more about planned giving and how to apply it to a fundraising strategy. Tony is the host of the Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio podcast, and he has created the Planned Giving Accelerator training program. So welcome, Tony.
Thank you, Cara. Thanks for hosting.
Well, I am delighted to talk to you today. Today, you have some planned giving basics, but also some things we really must know about implementing planned giving into an overall fundraising strategy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's dive right in. Our first question here is about the significance of planned giving. Tony, can you tell us why planned giving is important? So why is this a big deal for nonprofits? And maybe how can it benefit donors too?
Well, you tapped into it, Cara, in your intro, the sustainability of our work, our mission, our values. Planned gifts are long-term gifts to nonprofits. So we're talking about something that, let's say, the easiest example to use is a gift in someone's will. If a 60-year-old puts you in their will, that's not a gift of cash to your nonprofit until that person has died. And so that could be 30 years or more. So these are all long-term gifts. But, you know, as a business person running a nonprofit or fundraising for a nonprofit, you need to be aware of, obviously, your immediate needs, your midterm needs, and your long-term needs. And the long-term survivability, that sustainability, that's where planned giving fits in. So it builds your sustainability, helps you start or grow your endowment, that savings account that we never spend the principal of. We only ever spend the income that gets earned each year, or maybe even less than the income. So the sustainability, the endowment, donor relationships, so much deeper. When you start talking to folks about including your work in their estate plan, and I'm always going to use the example of the will because I think we're going to talk about it. That's the place to start, and it's the easiest planned gift for everybody to understand because everybody knows how wills work. So when you start talking to someone about including your work in their will, and you're recognizing how long they've been supporting you, because you're only talking to loyal donors about this subject, those are your best prospects, your loyal donors, it becomes a celebration of how much they've done for your nonprofit through the years that leads up to this conversation. And it becomes a conversation about not death, which a lot of people believe, but a conversation about life, the life of your nonprofit.
Thank you. That's a really great overview. And you addressed a common concern that I know I have, and I think is daunting for many fundraisers, that conversation about death.
Oh my.
How do you...
Yes. Such a serious misconception. Yes.
Okay.
I hate that insidious myth that people think this is a conversation about death. I have to talk to donors about their deaths. The conversation is about, as I said, the life, the sustainability of your work. It's not a conversation about the details of wills and whether this should be an outright bequest or a residual bequest, or should I use a trust instead of a will? All those kinds of conversations, all those kinds of topics, I should say, those you politely defer the donor to their attorney, to their estate planning attorney for any kinds of technical questions they have. The conversation you're having with your donors is this: how important it is to your community, however you define community. It might be a little community, it might be a county, a state. If you're in Canada, it might be a province, the nation, the environment. However you define community, how important it is to your community that your work continues for decades to come, decades, generations, and how devastating it would be to your community if your work ceased 15, 20, 25 years from now, you no longer existed. Your work stopped. How devastating would that be to your community? Well, the gifts that you're talking to your donors about are intended to and will prevent that ugly future from ever happening. Your work will be sustainable for decades and generations. So your community will never face that ugly future where your work stops. So all the conversations around a gift in your will are about how important your work is to your community and how important it is to the community that that work continues indefinitely.
That's so important. Thank you for clarifying that. The conversation is about the legacy that the donor or the family could leave in the community, not necessarily about what's going to happen at death. So right. I appreciate that.
And their legacy and the life of your nonprofit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The partnership. Yeah, the partnership. So, Tony, I read something that you shared, and you said that there is research that has shown donors who make planned gifts tend to actually increase their annual giving too. Can you share some insights into why you think that's the case?
Another one of these insidious, hateful myths that I am happy to debunk. So thank you, Kat.
We're Mythbusters today.
We are Mythbusters, absolutely. This is the myth that planned giving is going to hurt our other fundraising. Oh, we hear it, and regrettably, we hear it so often from naysaying board members. I can't tell you how many board meetings I've been in where I've been talking about planned giving. It's going to hurt our other fundraising. People are going to put us in their wills, and then they're going to stop their other giving. We need to work around these naysayers, bring them from the dark side to the light. So I have been doing planned giving for 26 years, and I have seen hundreds of donors through the years who increase their giving after they've told the nonprofit that they've included the organization in their will. And what's the reason? Because they feel so much closer to you. What have they done? A donor has put you alongside her husband, partner, children, grandchildren, right alongside her grandchildren. There's a gift for your nonprofit right alongside her dear grandchildren. That's how much she loves you, and that's why she'll increase her giving. It's very, very likely. All right, now, you might say, well, Tony Martignetti is, all right, Cara said he knows what he's talking about, but the guy's got 26 years, but it's all anecdotes. 26 years of anecdotes. It just doesn't matter. Fine. You don't have to listen to my anecdotes. It's been quantitatively studied. Professor Russell James at Texas Tech University. He studies planned giving quantitatively. He puts it through the rigors. And he has shown that at least 75% of people who make the commitment and tell the organization that they've put the organization in their will, and his research was specific to wills, not planned gifts generally, 75% of those folks will increase their other giving to your nonprofit.
Wow.
So you got a bunch of anecdotes, 26 years times 26 years for Tony Martignetti, and you have quantitative research from Professor Russell James at Texas Tech University.
That's significant, but it makes sense. You know, when a donor raises their hand and says, I'll support you years from now, past my lifetime, it usually means that they care enough to support you right now too, right? Yeah.
And they want to increase that support. Most folks do. Most folks do want to. Yep.
Thank you. So now, for nonprofits that are just starting to develop a planned giving program, they're just dipping their toes in the water right now. They might be apprehensive about the donor meeting or approaching donors. Maybe they're uncomfortable with their own knowledge of planned giving and the opportunities there, or maybe they're just fearful that they'll miss out on, that annual gift and things like that. So what approach would you recommend to them? How do they equip themselves to be confident having these meetings?
You're getting at another of the insidious, hateful myths, which is that we have to be super knowledgeable and we have to offer all the different methods of planned giving, wills and life insurance and pensions and IRAs and charitable trusts and charitable annuities and charitable remainder trusts and charitable lead trusts and charitable remainder unit trusts with net income makeup provisions.
That's a long list.
Which is a real thing. I didn't just make that up. Yeah, but you don't. You start with simple gifts in people's wills, Cara, because there's three things that we can leverage about wills that make it easy for our team, internal team, and for our donors. I'll explain why. Those three things are, everybody knows what a will is, everybody knows how wills work, and everybody knows they need a will. So we can leverage those three factors about wills. It's easy for your team because they don't have to go to professional development to learn about net income, a charitable remainder unit trust with net income makeup provisions. You don't have to learn it. You don't have to go to seminars. You don't have to spend money on professional development. Wills. Everybody knows what they are. Everybody knows how they work. Everybody knows they need one. That's easy for your team. You don't need a bunch of professional development. You don't need a bunch of expertise on your board. It's easy for your donors. The same three things apply. They know those facts about wills. Everybody knows what you're talking about. So the conversation is, again, what I said earlier. It's about the life and sustainability of your nonprofit, not about technical planned giving jargon and trusts versus wills versus life insurance and what are the tax advantages. It's not about that. It's about the life and the sustainability of your nonprofit. It's about the simple gift in people's wills. And so, Cara, so that's the place to launch planned giving, gifts in wills. And in out years, if you want to go beyond into those other things I mentioned, sure, you can, but take solace knowing, take comfort knowing you never have to. You can have a very, very, very respectable planned giving program 20 years from now, and you're only still talking to folks about gifts in wills because they're the most popular planned gift by far. 75 to 90% of all the planned gifts out there are going to be gifts in wills. So if you never go beyond that one offering, that one method, you're not leaving much on the table.
I appreciate that. I know I feel a little more comfortable just hearing that myself, but start small. And then over time, as you gain experience and you have introductions to others in the field who might know things, you can expand those planned giving efforts.
If you want to, right?
Yeah.
If you so desire. Yeah, those other gifts, life insurance can be a great planned gift. It's just not very common. Those charitable trusts I was reeling off, they can be great planned gifts. They're just not that common. The gifts in wills, minimum 75% of all the planned gifts out there.
Okay.
And in your nonprofit, when you get started, you're going to see at least 75, maybe as much as 90% of your planned gifts are going to be the simple gifts in wills.
Wow, that's great. Well, Tony, thank you for shedding light on the importance of planned giving. But what I really appreciated today was just these kind of easy how-tos for nonprofits to help them navigate in this space. It's really not scary at all, especially when you have experts on your side like you, Tony, consultants, when you collaborate with other organizations and learn how they're using planned giving as part of their overall fundraising strategy. I think those are really great places to turn.
I'm glad. Don't be put off by planned giving. Mm-hmm. It does not have to be difficult, technical. It's not about death. It doesn't hurt your other fundraising. All those myths busted. And that's the kind of stuff that we talk about in the Planned Giving Accelerator too.
Well, that's my next question. So I know I'm always learning more about planned giving. If someone wanted to know more or wanted to work with you, how do they find more information?
The Planned Giving Accelerator, the next course is going to be starting in early March of 2024. I do just one class a year. So we'll be promoting it in January and February. Class will start in early March and it'll be done by Memorial Day. So it's about a 12-week class. And the best way to get information about it once we start promoting in January would be just send me an email. Tony@TonyMartignetti.com. I'm also active on LinkedIn, also on Twitter or X @TonyMartignetti. Any one of those ways. But I welcome an email. Sure, send me an email. Tony@TonyMartignetti.com.
Thank you. We'll be sure to link that in the show notes as well. But I know I follow you on LinkedIn and I'm always gleaning insights from you. So thank you for that. If someone wanted to take part in the course, what is the time commitment every week that they should expect?
It'll be an hour a week.
Okay.
An hour a week. We'll meet. The whole class meets together. I set them up as meetings on Zoom, not webinars. Mm-hmm. So meetings, so everybody can crosstalk, and there is a lot of peer learning. That's been incredible, much more than I realized I expected. But yes, it's an hour a week, 11 to 12 weeks.
Wow, that's a really great foundational learning opportunity for anybody who wants to learn more. Well, thanks for taking time to join us on the Nonprofit Podcast today.
My pleasure, Cara. Thank you. Thanks again for hosting me.
And as we wrap up this week's episode, we want to sincerely thank you, our listeners, for spending time with the Nonprofit Podcast. I hope you've left with the confidence to take a small step today that will make a big difference tomorrow. Be sure to click the download button on your podcast player, then leave the Nonprofit Podcast a review or give it a thumbs up if you're listening to the Nonprofit Podcast on YouTube. Your review really is a great way to help others find us. You're here to help others. We're here to help you. So until next time, stay inspired.
That warm feeling when you help someone, it's not just happiness, it's fulfillment. And we believe it should be available to everyone, from frontline heroes to first-time fundraisers. Our tools empower you to help others. This is our mission. This is DonorBox, helping you help others.